Why hello and welcome back to another episode of Voice of the Rings, a Zollin's Opinion playlist. And today, we're going to be talking a little bit more about part 2. I don't know if you've watched my part 1. You don't really need to watch my part 1 to know this part. But the Amazon new game VP kind of threw a little bit of shade at Lord of the Rings Online. And I want to talk about a few things in this article. And I want to talk about it from a more positive and neutral perspective. We're going to analyze it. We're going to see what we think here on this stuff. And personally, just to put your hearts all at ease right now, I do not think that this Amazon Lord of the Rings game is going to affect LOTR. And like, oh no, is LOTR going to get crushed and shut down? No, LOTR has its own rights. They have a whole new rights from a new thing. And it's really, LOTR has weathered the storms, you guys. If you just look through history, anyone who says, you know, a game is dying or whatever, just go and look at the history. What games are still alive? The MMOs that are still alive, those are the games that are doing the right things. World of Warcraft, Lord of the Rings Online, Guild Wars 2, Final Fantasy, RuneScape. The games that have survived the test of time and they're still here, those are the games. Count how many MMOs have died in the last 15 years. Probably way more than you could put on, you know, your two hands. It's probably in the 20s or 30s, I would guess, at least, if you're counting the smaller ones too. But anyway, here is the article right down here. I will link this in the description for you as well. Let's talk about it. So basically, this is I like this site, massively overpowered. I like their articles. They're really short, sweet, to the point. I'll link it down there in the description. So the new Lord of the Rings project. With the recent announcement of the new Lord of the Rings MMO in development by Amazon Games, one would expect the newcomer to follow typical protocol by being gracious towards existing property while taking up its own project. Well, that doesn't always happen these days, does it? But that's not the tack that Amazon is taking. At the studio comes jabbing at Lord of the Rings Online in an interview this week. All right, so let's not all get riled up here, okay? Us Lord of the Rings MMO LOTR players here. I want to see right off the bat that I have full, you know, I hope Amazon makes a great game. I'd be super stoked. I'd super support it if it's good. I will support something if it's good. If it is totally bad, I will not support it. That's just how it goes, right? That's how we should, you know, use our pocketbooks. Don't support something that you don't like, guys, right? If they do a good job, then tell them, hey, you did a good job. We'll support it, right? But anyway, I think maybe this is, we'll make sure this isn't like taking out of contents, but we'll read it. Here we go. Amazon Games VP Christopher Hartman threw a bit of condescending shade at Standing Stone Games. Again, of course, this is how this person's writing this article, but I would assume that it's probably the case, but we'll see. At Standing Stones, let's read through it and then I will talk it over. MMO, while talking to Gibbs, whatever, that one person, when asked about LOTR, Hartman said, right, the game that's been out for 16 years. If you don't know that, and you're on this channel right now, you might want to like and subscribe if you want a really good Lord of the Rings MMO that's been out for a long time. He goes, I have a lot of respect for them to keep it going that long. Okay, that's nice. Now, seems a little underlining, like you know, you're old, you need to move on kind of thing. That's a little bit of the feel there, but maybe not. He said they have a not huge, but a very dedicated fan base. I don't think that's false, right? I don't think it's a huge fan base. I don't think it's a small fan base, okay? I guess it's all according to preference, but Lord of the Rings Online has many thousands of players, so it's definitely not small. It's not like it's only a few hundred people or something. But looking just at the technology, he says, where we're at now and where it will be in a couple years, it's just worlds apart. It's a little extravagation if I say it's going to be like black and white movies to color, but that's the approach I would take it. I think that's a little too extreme of a comment. It's just a completely different world. Now, here's what I want to talk about immediately in this first sentence, okay, that I have highlighted here. New world, okay? So I talked about it in the part 1 of my video about this, what's going on here, okay? And a really well done link by another YouTuber who covers MMOs. I might link his video again in this one. He talked about basically the failures of New World, okay? How bad it was, okay? they've had some drastic things. So this isn't me attacking them. It's a good game. I actually enjoyed playing it a little bit, but it didn't hold my attention, and it had so many drastic glitches. And LOTR has not always been perfect either. Obviously, we have lag issues. There's always been things, right? But there's some stuff that New World went through that probably should have never gone through, even as a new company. There are things that should not have happened, and they did. So, big talk is my point. Again, I'm rooting that they make a great Lord of the Rings, another game. Maybe it won't even be a real like classic MMO. It might be something totally different. That's kind of what I would hope for. Something a little new. But anyway, I don't know about the completely different worlds. Again, the art style, yes, the engine is older, all that kind of stuff. But as we've seen in video games, I don't know about you guys, but I've played a lot of different video games. Sometimes newer engines can really stink when they're glitching out and crashing and having graphical issues. You're like, I kind of want to go back to playing my game with the old engine that worked. You know what I mean? So anyway, there we go on that set. Let's go on the next part here. A little bit later in the interview, he continues to shoulder LOTR aside by saying, I think they actually can coexist. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that first sentence. Even the most likely scenario is for people to just move over because the other one is an old game. It's not a bad game, but the industry moves on at some point, and it's a long time from their release to ours. Okay. Again, it seems like he's kind of just, maybe he just doesn't want to talk about it. That's fine. I think he could probably have done this a little more tact, right? Because if you want to get those hardcore Lord of the Rings supporters, you don't really want to offend one of the best video games adaptations of Tolkien's content of all time. That's totally the truth. Just like Peter Jackson's movies were so well done, right? So we'll see, right, with that one. And then Hartman said that he wanted the new MMO to last at least 10 years and become the largest MMO out there. He also hinted that the game wouldn't be quite as faithful to J.R.R. Tolkien's writing. Okay, so here's where we gotta talk about. Remember I mentioned in that first review video, if you watched it, and now in this one, the oxymoron a little bit I'm talking about. If you're gonna make a Lord of the Rings MMO, you gotta be faithful to Tolkien's stuff. Otherwise, you're just making a fantasy MMO. Does everyone understand that? Is that really far-fetched? Am I making a far-fetched statement on that? I think most of you watching right now are going, yeah, you're right. But that right there is really weird to me, okay? Which also makes me, unfortunately, even though I'm rooting for them, I'd love to have a new Lord of the Rings game that's fun. It makes me real worried when I hear statements like that. It's like he also hinted that the game wouldn't be quite as faithful to J.R.R. Tolkien's writings. Now, I can understand if he meant that as in, we're going to use the world frame and maybe we're going to make our own stories and we're not going to follow the book series like the Lord of the Rings Online MMO does, right? Right now, the one we have. If you don't know about it, you should know about it, guys. I could see that, but this was a weird one for me, personally. It was a little bit interesting. And then he says, it's not going to help me if someone is saying, that's a perfect representation of the book in a game, he said. If you're really into that, read the book, he said. Read it another 5 times. Otherwise, it's a game. A game has to do with playing, and they have to be playful. So there needs to be little bit of being able to bend the rules to make it a great game. All right, we got to unravel this sentence. For one, this whole paragraph is a little weird, the way it's said, but we have to unravel it, okay? So it's not going to be the same if someone says that's a perfect representation of the game in the book. Nobody's saying that. If you played the Lord of the Rings Online MMO, you know that they've added a lot of content that is not in the books, right? A lot of made up stuff. But the thing is, they keep the core values of Tolkien when they make stuff up. They think, well, would Tolkien be okay with this? You know, he gives us this laying down of ground, but we don't know what he talked about this, so we'll make this up. But how faithful can we be to make it seem like what it would fit with Tolkien's lore? It doesn't clash with Tolkien's lore, right? That's the big one. It can't clash. That was one issue in Rings of Power for me personally, as a personal point, right? Again, there's some parts of the Rings of Power I really loved. But a big thing like the whole story about the Mithril, it clashed with Tolkien's lore. It was like an opposite. You can't do that. That's too far, right? Now you're just making up your own story with, you know, similar words of locations, people's names, and substances like mithril, right? You're just using them, right? Those words. You're not really using the lore behind it, okay? He then said, if you're really into that, read the book. Read it another 5 times. We've read the book tons of times, of course. The whole goal of making an MMO based in the Lord of the Rings online is to literally have what you read feel like you're in that world, right? Otherwise, it's not Lord of the Rings. It's just a fantasy series. Now, again, you could make a great fantasy series that isn't Lord of the Rings, of course. That's why Tolkien was the father of fantasy. Look at how many fantasies were born out of the inspiration of his world, right? They're not Tolkien's world, but they're great worlds, right? We got so many. We got all the D&D stuff, the World of Warcraft stuff. You know, it goes on and on, right? That one's a weird one to me. What do you guys think? And then otherwise, it's a game, he says. A game has to be to do with playing, okay? Not to sound mean to his comment, but duh, okay? And they have to be playful. So good game mechanics. Is that what he means by playful? That's a little confusing too. So there needs to be a little more being able to bend the rules and make a great game. I understand the bending the rules. LOTR knows how to bend the rules, okay? LOTR does a pretty darn good job with that. Our game we have right now, right? I feel like they do a good job with that already, with things that Tolkien didn't write or slightly adjusts, and they do a storyline and they do it right? And they have to be playful. So I mean, I guess that's gameplay, fun, just it's fun to play it, right? That's fine, right? But that's every game. Every game needs good music and good gameplay, right? Those are huge, especially for me personally. If some game doesn't have good music, or the gameplay is just not very much fun, you're pretty much not going to play it. I always say music is about 50% of everything, okay? For example, the Rings of Power, some of the tracks were really good. If you noticed, me personally, that from an editing perspective, the music never came very loud in the Rings of Power. It was always in the background, okay? So much so that I felt like it kind of diminished the music. There were some really cool tracks. The Numenor track was really good. The composer who did the Rings of Power series, besides, you know, Howard Shore did the theme song, but the actual background music was, he did God of War, I think. He's a really good composer, really good music, but I felt like they didn't really use his music well in the way they put it into the score and how they edited it in. That's something I also noticed too when I played New World. I really didn't notice the music very much. So it's very important how you inject the music into the game and into the story, right? I mean, look at all our games we love, like Zelda, Mario, these theme songs that we just know from childhood, right? Pokemon, right? They're just there. The Lord of the Rings movies, the Star Wars movies, the Harry Potter movies, right? These music soundtracks that are so ingrained that we just, in culture, just remember them, right? So anyway, I will link this in the description, this article here, and I will also link that video I was talking about kind of the failures of New World. And I just want to let you guys know right now, don't fret on this stuff. It's going to be 4 to 5 years before this game would even come out, and we don't know how great it's going to be. And remember, LOTR has been doing a lot of updates too and stuff, and they just know how to... I think that if this person, the CEO, would probably be a little more humble in the way he says stuff towards games that are kind of classics and been around a while, especially since their company has really had troubles with a lot of their games, the new Amazon gaming and group. And yet these other games have been out for 16 years, 18 years, all these other MMOs, right? 10 years, and they're still going pretty darn strong. So it definitely seemed like shade to me a little bit. So I think the article was truthful in that area. What do you guys think? I think some of his statements were fair. I'm totally down to, you know, it's a niche thing. MMOs are a niche thing, right? It'd be cool if we can get more people to play them, but they take a lot of time, right? That's why faster paced games like, you know, League of Legends, things that you can sit down for 30 minutes, play and be done. It's good, right? For a lot of people's lifestyles. MMOs though, you don't get that MMO feel in those other games though. If you really want to walk around the world, live in it, role play, you know, that kind of thing. And personally, through high school, LOTR really helped me because I went through a lot of hard stuff And, you know, I had a great mom and a great sister, but not such a great dad. But, you know, it really helped to have friends and to be able to go into the world of Middle-earth and really just live in Middle-earth sometimes. Now, it's not healthy to be in it constantly, but to be able to escape for 2 hours and just go play with your friends in a fantasy world that based off these books that you love by Tolkien, and Tolkien who went through really hard things in his life and where he got inspirations for his books, it's really healthy, I think. I think it's actually healthy. As long as you don't overly play video games, I think it's healthy if you have good friendships and you're playing a healthy game like Lord of the Rings Online or something. Now, I don't think games are healthy that make you spend lots of money and you grab. That's a very deep subject we're not going to go into. I could do it in another video if you want. But yeah, anyway, what do you guys think? I'm still root for Amazon. I'm like, great, make us a good Lord of the Rings game. I'm down. Just be kind to the ones that are already good. And a lot of people, one thing that I've always kind of said, like the Standing Stones team now, let's say that runs Lord of the Rings Online now, right? Is that I would say to them that I love their game. I support their game greatly because it's so holds true to Tolkien's lore, even with the stuff they make up. And I would tell them too, make sure you advertise more, because I've always thought that about LOTR. It doesn't advertise enough. People don't know about it. And I'm like, how do people not realize this stuff, right? Like, again, I don't know if I said in this video or my previous review video, but someone mentioned it to the streamer Asmongold, right? Who does a lot of World of Warcraft. He was talking about this new Amazon thing, and he's like, oh, it'd be cool if it's good, but it might not be, right? But maybe it will. That'd be cool if it was good. And I agree with what he said. But he kind of made the comment too that someone said, oh, LOTR is already a thing. He's like, oh, but isn't that an older game? He obviously didn't know about it, right? He didn't mean that as shade. But I say to Asmongold, if he ever sees this too, you should check out LOTR. You'd probably like it. Because WoW is actually older than LOTR. And if he loves WoW still, he'd probably love LOTR. So, but anyway, yeah. It's a good game, so advertise it, Standing Stones. Have a great day, Middle-earth, my friends. Thank you to my patrons for their support. I'll see you all in the next episodes of Voice of the Rings. Stay happy. And again, don't you worry on this channel. We'll be around many years, and we will be playing LOTR, of course, many of those years, and always be doing Tolkien content, no matter where our road leads us. Right? Just like the Bilbo song. Down the road, do. Stay happy, guys. See you in the next episodes of Voice of the Rings. Barukazad, Kuzare Benyo.